Well, good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending where you are. Welcome to our December National ESP webinar. My name is Paul Roback. I am the chair of the Professional Development Committee. And with me today, I also have Michelle Harmon, who is also serves on the committee and is going to act as our co-host, making sure that we admit everybody into the room and also monitor the chat. So if you have questions during today's presentation, feel free to add it into the chat. While I'm talking about the chat, if you haven't done so already, please drop your name and institution in the chat box so we can just keep track of everybody that was able to attend today's session. So with that, I'd like to introduce today's presenters. The session today is Building Entrepreneurial-Friendly Communities in the Outdoor Recreation Sector. And we have a number of Extension colleagues with us today as co-presenters from both Ohio and Minnesota. So very exciting to have not only the number of Extension colleagues co-presenting, but also having two Extension services is a lot of fun. So with us, we have Gwynn Stewart and Nancy Bowen-Ellzey. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. And Myra Moss from Ohio, excuse me. And Kyle from Ohio as well. And then Ami and Neil from Minnesota Extension. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Gwynn.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everybody, for joining. We are going to share screen here, hopefully. Everybody see that? Thumbs up? Okay. As Paul mentioned, we are here to share a little bit more about a curriculum that we worked cooperatively between Ohio State and University of Minnesota Extension to develop over this past year, focusing really in on the outdoor recreation sector. According to the Outdoor Recreation Roundtable data, this is a sector that's contributing 2.2% of the U.S. gross domestic product, or $1.2 trillion annually. So it's worth paying attention to. It also represents more than 5 million jobs. And recently, they also released some data that shows that related to outdoor recreation on America's federal public lands and waters, it contributes $351 million to the economy. So for this reason, our team is focusing on gateway and rural communities within this curriculum development initiative to help address the potential of these areas to thrive in this diverse and expanding industry. So you'll see here, as Paul mentioned, there are several folks on our team. And we're all here today with the exception of Kyle White, who recently retired from Ohio State Extension. And this project was funded from a grant through the North Central Regional Center for Rural Development through their small grants program. And we've worked together to create this curriculum. And Myra is going to share a little more with us in a moment, but as cooperative extension educators and practitioners, we think this is important to you as you play a role in strengthening local economies through supporting and enhancing community-based entrepreneurship. In addition, by employing effective community development strategies, Extension can be a catalyst to help build leadership capacity within the business community and the public sector, as well as this curriculum aligns well with other cooperative extension areas of emphasis, such as enhancing wellness and mental health and supporting youth development. So a lot of the different areas within Extension could pay attention to outdoor recreation and entrepreneurship. And Myra is going to kick us off now with a little more information on the project.
Gwen, can you hit the next slide, please? Thank you. Why are we doing this project? And this started quite a few years ago and has gone through a few iterations. What we think is really important about this are two things. One is to build awareness in local communities of the importance and the vital role of entrepreneurs. In economic development, often it's the large project that gets all the buzz. Well, you look at the cumulative effect of entrepreneurs on your local economy, and many local leaders are not really aware of this. So we felt that this was a real need. The other thing is we want to develop capacity in these local communities, empower them to be able to create an environment that's supported for entrepreneurs to start up, grow, and succeed. So we're providing actionable insights, tools, things like what are the funding sources, how do you develop entrepreneur networks, and other kinds of resources that you would find at the local, state, and federal level. So a lot of it's about empowering these local communities, making them aware of what they can do to build that environment that's going to create a successful entrepreneurial culture in their community. And then finally, tailoring for impact. What's exciting about this, looking at gateway communities, is it built on assets that many rural communities already have, which would be their outdoor recreation, their outdoor parks, different kinds of activities that occur in their community, and building on that as an important asset to develop their entrepreneur community. Gwynn?
Thanks, Myra. We thought we would share, just zooming in for you, a little bit about the two states where we work and how the outdoor recreation economy affects our states. So in Ohio, it's similar to the national percentage of the GDP at 2.2% of the state GDP in Ohio, or $19 billion. So it's worth paying attention to in the state, and almost 150,000 jobs, or 2.6% of our local workforce. And it also produces about $8 billion in wages, and many of this is in rural communities. As a state, we are ranked 7th in the value add among all states in outdoor recreation as well, with more than half of Ohioans participating in some form of outdoor recreation, which, as you all know, is a wide variety of activities happening in this sector. So drilling in on just kind of really our top three, we look at fishing as really the highest level in Ohio, 1.7 million anglers who spend over $5.5 billion annually. And at least 37% of those took a trip to Lake Erie, one of our biggest assets. And then coming to look at hunting, about 500,000 Ohioans hunt, and they spend close to $2 billion annually. And then thirdly, the participation in wildlife viewing by more than 4 million who spend close to 1.6 billion annually. And a third of those are using public lands for this outdoor viewing. So that's kind of a quick look at Ohio, and Amin's going to share more on Minnesota.
Thanks, Gwynn. So let's take a quick look at Minnesota. Here, the story is just as compelling. In 2023 alone, the sector generated 13.5 billion, accounting for 2.8% of our entire state GDP. We're seeing incredible momentum, growing 10.5% from the previous year and outpacing national growth. This really fuels real livelihoods. It supports approximately 96,000 jobs. That's over 3% of Minnesota's workforce, and generates nearly $6 billion in wages and salaries. And with Minnesota ranking 10th nationally in employment growth, the data tells us that outdoor recreation is a thriving engine for our local economies. Next slide, please. So where is all that money coming from? When we break it down by activity, we see a few clear leaders. Boating and fishing remain our dominant drivers, contributing over 1.1 billion combined. We also see huge numbers from RVing and hunting, with each generating over $500 million. And naturally, living in Minnesota, we obviously can't ignore snow activities, which bring in about $240 million. So all these economic numbers really highlight that while these might look like just hobbies, they are actually major revenue streams for our local towns and communities. Next slide, please. Thanks. So we have the data, but data alone doesn't build businesses, but people do. And the reality is many leaders want growth, but simply don't know how to support it. And so they often ask, what specifically makes a community entrepreneur friendly? And that's exactly where this course comes in, and it answers that question. So our primary goal through this curriculum is to help local leaders understand their leadership role and influence in creating that supportive culture. So specifically, the goal of the program is to help local leaders understand the specific opportunities within the outdoor recreation sector, understand the critical role entrepreneurs play in their local economy and jobs, identify strategies that can help these entrepreneurs grow, and finally position their community as a supportive ecosystem where entrepreneurs can thrive. Next slide, please. So how do we build that capacity to do this? Our curriculum provides specific tools to make that happen. So it creates a deep understanding of specific opportunities and needs within the outdoor recreation sector. And the program also helps create a locally targeted entrepreneurship wellness profile to help identify specific gaps and opportunities in each local community. And it also increases awareness of the federal, state, and local programs that offer funding and support. And lastly, the program also helps create a strategic plan, giving leaders a concrete roadmap to implement these initiatives.
And I'll take over next. Thanks, Ami. So one of the things we had to do with this course was work from an existing curriculum that Ohio State University Extension had focused on building entrepreneurial friendly communities. And one of the things we had to consider was how do we really blend in this amazing information about the opportunities and the scale of outdoor recreation and connect that with entrepreneurship and community development. What we decided to do was to create a module that could stand alone, and we called it Module Zero. And that module gave an overview of some of the key factors related to entrepreneurship, community development, but also more importantly, to share about outdoor recreation. And that's important because sometimes communities aren't ready for a larger effort. They just want to get a start on a topic and learn a little bit about it before they commit further. Then the rest of the course follows, as you see here, 3 additional modules that focus on first, introduction to entrepreneurship and how to understand entrepreneurs. Next, the elements of a successful entrepreneurship program. And finally, focusing on developing a focused strategic plan. And we anticipate that sometimes those strategic plans will be short and others will be really in-depth and have multiple features to them. So let's look at each of these modules just briefly as we share this overview. In Module 0, as I mentioned, we wanted to make sure that we could talk about outdoor recreation and why it matters. And so community examples are a big portion of that. We also need to talk about why entrepreneurship matters. And luckily, there's a lot of people in Extension across the country that have focused on this, and we could build off of some of the work that they've done. And then most importantly, we wanted to make sure that we could provide a jargon-free way to describe what communities are doing to support entrepreneurs. So we can move to the next slide. And then in the additional sessions or modules, we really dive into the entrepreneurship wellness profile that you'll hear about next, and try to link the data about a community situation with the intended actions related to outdoor recreation. We invite a panel of local entrepreneurs to share their experience, and we encourage those to be outdoor recreation entrepreneurs. And then we have some information on just some very basic guidelines and information about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. When we move into session 2 or module 2, what we're thinking about is what makes a successful entrepreneurship program within a community. So that's taking it from looking at just an individual entrepreneur and what they need and thinking about a community as a whole and what might need to be present and functioning for that place to be a friendly place for entrepreneurs and have a culture that's supportive. So that involves reaching out to people and some homework and encouragement to make sure that folks in communities that have these goals in mind are reaching out and not sort of just going with what they all think they heard one time in the coffee shop. And then finally, again, that module 3 is about a focused strategic plan. Now, sometimes in very small communities, that might be 1 or 2 actions that really seem important. And in larger communities, we could see a much more robust plan. That strategic plan is about what's right for them and what will work for them to better support entrepreneurs and specifically those outdoor recreation entrepreneurs. So let's move on to the wellness profile that Nancy's going to describe.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm joining by phone. Can you see my face? Probably doesn't matter. I'm going to cover the profile, and that is really about wrapping your arms around the data to support outdoor rec. What does it mean for you, your community? Is it, kind of measuring the situation? Where are we now? And as we've heard from Ami and Gwynn, this is a growing sector. It's a segment of the small business sector, overall small business economy, but it's a growing sector and one that definitely needs better understanding. And we can do that through a wellness profile. And when we developed this curriculum, we said, what do we need to know? So the wellness profile is research-based, and we look at using easily accessed data to help you and your stakeholders understand current conditions with relevant data. So not just to measure small business growth, but to measure specifically growth within the outdoor recreation sector. So it has other purposes too. The profile really is a teaching and tracking tool. So used annually to update the data, it can really help communicate change. It's a powerful tool to measure change. So, if you have downhill skiing industry in your county or in your region, where is it today? What do the sales and employment numbers look like? How about last year? What about 2 years from now? Is it a growing area? So those are the kinds of things we can do with a wellness profile. Next slide. So the local team might ask questions. What do we want to know? What do we want to ask of the data? And overall business, what is the overall conditions supporting outdoor rec? What other characteristics of the businesses within our recreation economy? How much what percentage of the overall economy do they represent? And in which areas are they concentrated? How can we support the growth within these sectors? Are there gaps that we might want to fill? And if so, there might be opportunities there for growth, to encourage entrepreneurship. Next slide. So finally, there are some components that we might want to drill down and look at with the profile. This can be a dynamic list that might change. I've listed components here that we use for the overall entrepreneurship curriculum to look at a demographic occupational data analysis, proprietorship core index that was through Stats America, and then characteristics of small businesses in terms of percent of total economy, starts and closures. Those 2 pieces we were able to access through Your Economy, but can also be accessed through useful data, government data sources, including the quarterly census of employment and wages, which comes out through BLS. So there are some very accessible demographic and occupational data sets through the census. Another one is BEA, the Bureau of economic analysis, which offers more of a macro level. We also like to use, in addition to Your Economy, I mentioned that can be accessed with a subscription. Another one is InPlan, and it's got a data library, which is extensive in terms of offering, doing queries to find out more about occupation skill sets. What is the location quotient specific, drilling down to the 6-digit NAICS code. What are your occupational skill sets and gaps, industry sectors, household income. I like that you can take a grouping of sectors within the outdoor rec. I think there's about 20, isn't there, Neil? Something like that that help to catalog the outdoor rec industry. So we can combine those and look at the contribution specifically of outdoor rec in your community. What's the ripple effect? What are the additional jobs that are supported as a result of the direct jobs within that industry? So I like InPlan a lot for that. And that's something that you can access through us. And Neil, both of our universities carry that product. In addition to Your Economy, I believe you've got that, right, Neil? And finally, I think it's kind of fun to do Prism's consumer segment profile. I don't know if anybody's done that, but just go to prism.com, I believe. It's as easy as just looking it up online. Plug it in your county, and it's fun to understand about the characteristics of consumer spending in your community. So where our money is being spent and how. I think that's a really kind of neat thing to know. So that's kind of an encapsulation of what we're talking about in terms of the wellness profile. We can, again, look at different data sets in addition to what I've discussed. And now we'll move on to the next area.
Thanks, Nancy. We are fortunate on our team to have Nancy and Neil, who are really excellent at this data set and components portion of the curriculum. Next, though, we want to talk about how the curriculum helps develop a locally enabled culture. Neil mentioned that some communities who are smaller may have a different focus here than larger communities, but what we really do is step them through learning more about what makes an enabling culture. What does your permitting look like? Is it difficult? Is it easy to find out what you need to do when? Learn how to develop a local support team. And that may look different from community to communities. It might include someone from your Chamber of Commerce and your planning commission, or individuals in leadership in entrepreneurship to be a support. It also might explore successful entrepreneur networks. So teaming up new folks with folks who have been at it for a while, mentorships and other methods to explore that also help celebrate local entrepreneurs. Is there an opportunity to do an Entrepreneur of the Year, or to have maybe perhaps a think tank or a Shark Tank type thing where folks could secure funding and also have an opportunity to meet with the small business development centers, that type of thing. And then also finally discussing those local data collection options that Nancy and Neil have talked about throughout. And so this portion of the curriculum really just helps them develop, customized to their community. What does it look like for your culture to enable others to be successful and to stay in business in the long term? And as Neil mentioned earlier, then each module has a portion to it that is focused on a long-term development of a strategic plan by the end of the curriculum. And so throughout each module, they will explore the benefits of strategic planning, asking these key questions. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? How do you plan to get there? And how you stay on track and on progress through things like SMART goals and opportunities of timelines and assignments of who's going to be doing what. So they become aware of this basic element of a strategic plan, and they consider and construct throughout the curriculum their strategic plan to create an entrepreneur-friendly community. And as Neil mentioned, it may be very simple for smaller communities or more in depth than detail for larger communities. But the goal at the end of the curriculum is for them to step away with a strategic plan that's written down. And I think Myra's going to share a little bit. Myra, you're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry about that. These are the deliverables, and it's kind of a recap of what we've been talking about for the last half an hour or so. The first one is the wellness profile, an actual profile of the entrepreneurs in your community that Nancy mentioned. And that's something that, and I believe she said this also, you can use not only now to understand where your entrepreneurs are at this point in time, but also project, use it a year from now, see if you've made any progress, 5 years from now, see what progress you've made. So that's something that can be kind of a living tool that you can carry with your community for years. The second one is grants and resources. And we deal with ones at the local, state, and federal level. The local one may be something as powerful, which is a very powerful tool, revolving loan funds. So that's something that we emphasize as well as state and federal sources. Third one is networks, kind of creating that entrepreneurship support team so that entrepreneurs can work with and help each other. And also have access, very clear access to local leaders, Chamber of Commerce, whoever is involved with that so that they can help solve problems that they may have or find strategies for building their business. And then finally, the last one is an actionable strategic plan, which Gwynn just went over, which leaves you with something that the community then can follow to actually implement these ideas and build their capacity. Next slide. So what are the delivery formats? We have a number of different delivery formats, and we've actually used most of these. We can do a train the trainer approach for anyone that plans to deliver this program in their community. So we can teach you how to do it, provide you with the resources and the materials, and then you would deliver this to your community. You would organize it, set it up, and deliver it. Another way is direct delivery, which would be to local leaders, and we would do this by the team. Okay, in other words, we would either work with you in person or virtually, however that worked out, to actually lead you through the program to actually implement the program in your community. And then the third way is Scarlet Canvas online delivery option, which is actually all of the curriculum in an online course, the curriculum and the resources which you can access. Okay, and I'm going to turn it over to Gwynn for final comments.
Thanks, Myra. And so the online version of the curriculum is also available through Minnesota on their format as well. You can find out more about this curriculum at this quick go link, go.lsu.edu/BEFC, and or contact myself or any of the other team members if you'd like to learn more. We'd like to finish up with just some visuals here. As you see, there are a lot of really tremendous outdoor recreation assets across the nation. And innovative entrepreneurs like the entrepreneur who built this unique tree house in the county where I live in Southeast Ohio, just really to attract a different scale of tourists to the beautiful scenery that is available in the Appalachian foothills of Southeast Ohio. And so those are the types of people that really we are thinking of when we think about developing a community curriculum to support these types of entrepreneurs who are working in this space. So we thank you today for your attention and being with us. And Paul, we'll just turn it over to you for the Q&A.
Thanks, Gwen. Yeah, and with that, if anybody has any questions, you can type it in the chat, or if you'd like, you can unmute your microphone as well.
I have a question to the fine folks here. Thank you for that great presentation. Curious to know it based on what you've seen. What's a realistic timeline for communities to take this on and think about growing their entrepreneurial opportunities?
So I believe from start to finish, the curriculum really takes about a 12-hour period. So if you're taking it online, you can complete the modules in this 12-hour period. You may need a little additional time with your cohort team if you're taking it together in a community to develop that strategic plan and some of those deliverables. As in the in-person delivery, we did it in a 3 to 4 session half days, I believe we did. So it kind of depends on the community and the time commitment they want to make and how you chunk up the modules for delivery in the in-person format.
Gotcha. And I'm sorry, I didn't ask my question very well. Thank you for that input. So when you deliver this to the community, what kind of realistic timelines and goals do you help offer them to kind of frame what it would be like in terms of their investment? So when you start them through the process, do you kind of give them a big broad picture and what have you seen in terms of what you've piloted?
So in the pilot setting, we really met with a rural community in Southeast Ohio, and we took them through. We stepped back to them in about 6 months after they did the training, did the strategic plan, touched base back with them. Some of their goals were shorter term, some were longer term. Some were based really on some financial impacts that they were hoping to find or put into place for hiring some key staff that would help create that support network. And so really it does kind of vary community to community based on how far out they want to plan. If it's short term, 6 months to a year, or some of the deliverables may be a little longer term based on their ability to find funding, if that makes sense.
I'll just offer a few thoughts on this as well. So we're still looking for our first pilot community here in Minnesota. We got the materials up, and we're hoping that in the next few months we'll have someone or a group of people that are interested in this. But from other work that we've done around entrepreneurship and communities, I think that it's reasonable to say if you want to make meaningful progress and you want to really examine something in depth, that it's going to take you 6 months or more to start having the conversations, to start making the connections, to get on people's agenda, these sorts of things. And even then, that's probably just to get you to the point of having your action plan. If we were going to talk to someone in a rural community and say, when could you really start to see results? I'd say it might be more than 18 months or longer before you're really going to start to see some of these investments pay off. Some of that is because building capacity takes time, and especially if it's a topic that your community is not aware of, then that just does take time to help people learn about what is outdoor recreation or what is entrepreneurship in general. Why should we care? Those sorts of things. So I guess more broadly about your question, I would say think about a year of overall time that would include the training, but also taking those initial steps at action and coming back to it and being kind of gritty when you encounter some resistance and you have to maybe try a new tactic. And there's a lot of folks, I think, on this call that I see that have that experience in communities as well. That we, talked about over time that community development is not always a straight line path. There's some starts and stops, and you should just plan for that.
Do we have another question? Oh, we have a
Oh, we
question.
have a question in the chat.
Oh, thanks, Michelle.
We have a question in the chat for Gwen. Could you share some of the ideas that your group generated, also some of the deliverables?
So from the pilot community, they were very rural, small county. They did have a state, actually a state forest, correct, Myra? I can't remember now if it was a state or a federal forest. So they really wanted to focus on that forest asset. And they had not had a chamber of commerce for a while and wanted to restand up an active chamber of commerce. They also wanted to connect as a support team around the various types of economic development professionals that could partner around this idea in this sector. And so they focused a lot of their support team around making sure the right folks from the workforce setting at the college, the high schools, and trade schools were involved in thinking about entrepreneurship at those settings. And so some of those ideas that I mentioned, like, some sort of a Shark Tank for kids who are interested in becoming an entrepreneur, or young folks who wanted to start their own business, encouraging that, getting that curriculum into the schools was another thing. And then really, they were really fascinated by the data sets that Nancy was able to provide to them, just giving them that baseline of wellness profile data. I don't know, Myra, if you have anything else. I do recall we had a panel. Our panel of entrepreneurs for that program were very, very broad and different. One was a winery. One was a local downtown entrepreneur who had a variety of businesses over time. And there were some commissioners who were involved in that conversation, county commissioners in Ohio. And they wanted to be sure that those local leaders, were stepping in to the businesses to introduce themselves and encourage those business leaders and owners. That was sort of a gap that they were seeing, that, we start a new business in a small town, any business is a big deal to a small town. And so the local leaders should be paying attention and kind of making themselves known to them as a resource.
Yeah, I think part of it is, to champion those local entrepreneurs and, beginning with recognizing their contribution to the local community. And there was a little bit of a disconnect there. So I think this program helped with that. I interviewed the person from the winery, and one of the issues that came up, which is very common for startup businesses too, is that they needed to go through the health department, and the health department was not as forthcoming or as fast as they could have been. And they were having some issues with the local economic development office. And the only reason I'm raising that as a point is sometimes your local entrepreneurs, we told them when they came in, be as honest as you can. This is not going to go any further than this room. And we really need to know how you were helped, what were the things that helped you, who are the people who helped you, and what were the barriers. And I think that was a real eye-opener for the people in the room.
I remember, in addition, this is Nancy here, that as you were both saying about the collaboration piece, that was a big one, trying to get all the players to the table. That was kind of the first step. And then one of the key partners around the table was with the local schools, a leader with the local schools. And they were encouraging, let's get the youth more involved in growing this sector. What do they think? Why aren't they even at the table? So, there was discussion around that too. Yeah, a lot was really talked about and discussed and some progress has been made. Not, I know one of the biggest barriers was that Chamber of Commerce, so don't know where that is right now.
I'll just add something that I learned from this that I think might come up in other communities, and that's that outdoor recreation type businesses are sometimes very seasonal, and so there may be opportunities for your community or the people that you're working with to consider, well, how can we support a business owner that's seasonal? And that might mean helping them find other opportunities that are outside of that sector, or find ways to bring in more customers in seasons that are contrary to what they're normally working in. So it's not necessarily the case that it's always directly looking for businesses that could be the next outdoor recreation business, but how can we support the people that run the existing businesses as well? And I'm thinking that that'll be something that comes up more frequently, and I'll be paying attention to it. I just would encourage everybody on this call also be thinking about things like that.
And I guess I would add, in other rural communities, often you'll find that things like zoning and permitting, and is there a building department? There may be gaps for those types of things in rural communities. So just encouraging them to, find a place where, if you're interested in being an entrepreneur in their community, it's kind of a one-stop shop where you can find out, is there zoning, where, what are the rules and regulations related to it? What types of permitting are required, and who do I contact? As Myra mentioned, the health department is important, especially in the outdoor recreation and rural communities. You may need the health department for sewer and septic types of things. If you are not on a public sewer line, how do you tap into public water? Is there water? Those types of things are really some of the things that we discussed from a just business development, economic development perspective, that sometimes small communities just don't have all in one place and have their ducks in a row per se for that.
Thanks, Paul.
Jennifer said in the chat she loves the idea of a Shark Tank. Yes, that's been common here in the Appalachian portion of Ohio to see these kind of youth-related Shark Tanks popping up. In the one school district in our county where I serve, they have a really robust entrepreneurship program. They have a student-led food truck, for instance, that they've developed, and they're learning, what is the process of owning and operating a food truck? What are the metrics? How much does it cost? The labor and all of those things. So it's been kind of a fascinating process to watch.
I'll just unmute myself for that. I think that's fantastic, and it should be called the Dolphin Tank instead of the Shark Tank for that.
That's great. Good point.
Pause to allow any other questions.
I'll just put in a plug for the National Extension Tourism Group. There is a structured National Extension Tourism design team and group. If you're not aware, there's a website. They have a conference every other year. So they're a good resource as well. If you're looking for things related to outdoor recreation, they have an outdoor recreation work group and an agritourism work group as well. So those are other resources for extension folks to be aware of as well.
Thanks, Gwen. And then you also mentioned that this project was funded through a grant. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Sure. We applied through the North Central region, the Rural Development Center, for a small grant. I think our grant was around $40,000, and it was really just to cover the cost of meeting and getting together and doing the research for the curriculum. And so the folks from Minnesota were able to visit Ohio, and we got together and coordinated, and they were very helpful with the funding for all of those things. I think Almi used a portion of the funding as well to attend the National Extension Tourism Conference that was in New Hampshire this past year to present on the curriculum. And Ohio had its first outdoor recreation conference and Myra, and some of us were able to present there as well. So a lot of states are paying attention. There are more than 20 states now that have an office of outdoor recreation, and others are sort of coming on board with that. So just paying attention is really a niche within tourism and entrepreneurship for this sector.
Thanks for providing that background information on the graph. So with that, I'd like to thank our presenters today, Gwynn, Nancy, Myra, Ami, Neil, and Kyle. Even though he wasn't here, he did contribute. He's retired. I do want to mention that our next webinar is January 12th, and the topic is Invest in Community, and it has to do with social connection and the 5-for-5 Connection Challenge. The presenter is Shannon Carter, also from Ohio's Alpha Eta chapter. A couple quick announcements. First, this was recorded today, so we'll send out an email to the link to the recording. It will be posted on ESP's YouTube channel, so you can watch for it there. We also will email out a PDF version of the PowerPoint from today, so you can have that as a reference as well. Other announcements include that the 2026 National Conference will be in Springfield, Illinois, and the request for proposals will be coming out in January. So that conference is October 12th to the 15th, and location is Springfield, Illinois. That's really close to a number of land-grant universities, so an easy drive to get there. So if you're interested in presenting at that conference, look for the RFP in January. Then also, please remember to renew your ESP membership. It's the end of the year, so it's always a good time to renew that membership. So thanks everyone for your time today, and I look forward to seeing you in January. Take care.